Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into something totally fascinating today. We're going to play the role of literary analysts to deconstruct a surprisingly raw piece of internet spoken word. On the surface, this audio track titled Would You Be My Wife by Binanda Das might just seem like a really repetitive plea, but when we actually peel back the layers, wow, we uncover these incredibly profound themes of long-distance longing, deep vulnerability, and geographical boundaries. I am so excited to guide you through this one. Dreams are not enough to attract your love. We're skipping our usual agenda today to start right there, with this completely devastating realization. We're hooked immediately into the speaker's profound awareness of his own limitations. Think about it. In so many romantic monologues, love is treated as this magical, unstoppable force, right? But here, right out of the gate, the speaker acknowledges the crushing reality that simply dreaming about someone, just wishing for them, it's just not enough to pull them across the world. It sets this beautifully grounded, almost heartbreaking tone for everything we're about to explore. Okay, Section 1, the anatomy of devotion. Let's get into it. So let's look at how this transcript uses sheer repetition. And it's not just for emphasis, it actually simulates the sound of an anxious beating heart. It brilliantly illustrates his initial overwhelming emotion. 6. Before offering us any context whatsoever, before telling us who she is or where he is, the speaker repeats the exact phrase, I love you, lady, 6 times in the opening breath. I love you, lady, I love you, lady, I love you, lady. It's almost manic, right? It creates this immediate sense of breathlessness. You can literally feel the nervous energy and the urgency pouring through. He's laying all his cards on the table before the game has even started. But then, we look at what he's actually promising her. Rather than grand, impossible gestures, like giving her the moon or moving mountains, his pitch is remarkably grounded. It's broken down into 3 highly intimate, simple vows of devotion: staying with you forever, listening to your voice, loving your thoughts. There is a deep psychological safety in these vows. He isn't offering wealth or status. He's offering pure, undivided attention. Honestly, in our hyper-distracted world today, promising to simply listen to someone's voice and love their thoughts is probably the most profound vow you can make. Moving on to Section 2, the geographic divide. Now let's see how this romantic yearning crashes straight into a very physical geopolitical barrier. Because this isn't just a poem about love, it's absolutely a poem about borders. Notice the stark contrast between the two realities being presented. On the speaker's side, it's defined by grounded physical suffering. Words like unable to come, fear in my heart, tears in my eyes. He's totally trapped in his physical body and location. But then look at how he describes the subject. She's in the United States. She's loving the stars, loving your creations. She occupies this elevated, almost celestial existence. The United States here isn't really just a country. In his monologue, it represents this unreachable utopia where people have the luxury to look up and love the stars, while he's looking down, paralyzed by fear and tears. And that geographic longing leads to a truly incredible moment in the text. Based purely on his stream of consciousness, we get a fascinating redefinition of a nationality. He says, I want to be an American loving your name. In the context of this monologue, his desire to be an American has literally nothing to do with politics or passports or economics. Being an American is strictly synonymous with loving her. He wants to assimilate completely into her world. His entire identity, even his nationality, would be defined simply by his devotion to this woman. Which brings us to Section 3, the ultimate ultimatum. This is the part where that manic repetition we heard earlier temporarily stops, and a very somber, devastating reality sets in regarding their physical separation. If I'm unable to come, you shall move on, have a family, and I shall not see you again. It is such a heavy, jarring sentence. He just accepts total defeat. He gives her explicit permission to erase him from her life if geography wins. There's no toxic possessiveness here. There's no demand that she wait for him forever. It's a stunning display of selfless love, really. Recognizing that her life and her happiness must continue, even with someone else, even having a family he will never see if he can't bridge the gap. But how does he cope with that potential reality? Well, even in the face of this ultimate loss, he says, I shall always tell my heart, you are beautiful. He vows to internalize his devotion. If he's not allowed to say it out loud to her, if he's not allowed to be her husband, he's going to keep the affection alive entirely in secret, just for his own heart. It completely transforms that outward, chaotic plea into a quiet, lifelong internal mantra. And that brings us to our final part, Section 4, the endless refrain. Here, we really see how the text abandons logic entirely and surrenders to this relentless, cyclical plea. Across this very brief, fast-paced transcript, the titular question, "Would you be my wife?" is asked an astonishing 8 times. 8 times! It becomes this rhythmic anchor for the whole piece. Whenever the speaker gets overwhelmed by the geopolitical distance, or his own tears, or the thought of her moving on, he snaps right back to this one central question. It's almost as if asking it over and over again might somehow magically bend reality and yield a different answer. Now, this repetition is actually structured in a highly organized way. Notice the exact 4-part formula he recites 4 different times in the text. First up is the compliment, "You are beautiful." Second is the vow, "Want to stay with you forever." Third, we have the action, "Listening to your voice, loving your thoughts." And finally, it all lands on the plea, "Would you be my wife?" Revealing this structure shows us that his chaotic, breathless plea is actually a highly organized emotional incantation. It's like a carefully constructed spell he's casting, hoping that if he just gets the formula exactly right, that distance will disappear. As we start to wrap up this explainer, looking at this incredibly repetitive structure really forces us to reflect on our own communication. Why do we repeat ourselves most when we're desperate to be heard? Human desperation often strips our vocabulary right down to a single looping track. When we feel totally powerless, like the speaker, separated by oceans and borders, we tend to abandon complex arguments entirely and revert to our most primal repetitive truths. And finally, reflecting on his willingness to let her move on and have a family without him, we're left with this really provocative question. Does true devotion actually require the willingness to walk away? If you truly love someone, do you have to be willing to completely let them go for their own sake, keeping that love alive only in your heart? It's the ultimate heartbreaking cost of unrequited long-distance love, and I think that's a really powerful thought to leave you with today. Thank you so much for joining me to deconstruct this totally fascinating piece of digital vulnerability. Keep analyzing, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.